Hey everyone, it's Ryan Henry with INSPIREsmall.biz and welcome to our new office. In this video today, I'm going to show you how to set everything up. So there's a couple of things we've already got in here. There's a mini fridge that's kind of off frame, a bookcase, a desk, and of course our modem for internet access. So basically what I'm going to do in this video today is talk through the basics of how we put our studio together so that each of you who are trying to do your own video content can try to do the same. So let's get started. We're going to start with the most important part of any office here, and that's getting our coffee pot set up. So this coffee pot isn't anything real special. However, it is a coffee pot, and entrepreneurship only exists because of a lot of coffee. So let's get to it. All right, so now that we've got the coffee going, we're going to work on what goes behind this desk. So this desk is extremely heavy. I don't want to have to move it again once I'm done. It's very important to talk about here, and I'll come up so I can give you a little bit of a better view. It's important when you're plugging electronics in anywhere, whether it's your home, your office, on the road, to use a good quality surge protector. So this one here I just happened to pick up at an electronics store in town. You'll see that it has an insurance policy here for destroyed electronics. So that's what we're looking for here. Anything about business is making sure that you minimize as much risk as you possibly can. And so this one here should be good at covering $300,000 worth of connected equipment. So overkill for what we need, but we never want to take a risk with business. They put those wire ties on there pretty good. There we go. All right, let's get that plugged in. All right, we've got power, so let's flip it on. All right, so when we have this flipped on, the green protected light, and I don't see the red not grounded, so we're in good shape. We can now start hooking up the rest of our electronics. Let's get that thrown away and keep things clean as we go along here. Store that under there. Okay, so next, let's go ahead and wipe this off here since we're starting with a nice clean surface. I brought these little stands that I believe are traditionally used for furniture like bed frames. So what I'm going to do here with this is I have a white shelf so I could set myself up an elevated space so I'm looking a little more straight at the monitors and not down all day hurting my back and neck. So we're starting with everything nice and clean to start out with this office. Okay. So next is our board we're going to set our monitors on. Okay, make sure we got that wiped off and then set up. Hey, there we go. All right, so the important part now here is before I put too much else on the desk, I want to scoot it back against the wall so that way I don't have things balanced on here later. And this other side's going to be a little more difficult with the drawers. There we go. All right, I think I got it. Make sure I'm not squishing any of the cables back there. Oh no, I have plenty of space, so we're just going to go the rest of the way back towards the wall here. There we go. And we'll leave this network, the modem back here, because I don't think we're going to need to interfere with it much once it's set and ready to go. I am leaving the surge protector on the desk at the edge, and that's so if I need to plug anything in or unplug anything in the future, I won't have to reach under the desk and move it around. All right, so next up we have our desktop. Let's get that set up here. And our screens. And that should also give me a little more space down the road if I want anything else up here. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to put it all in the middle. And that should work okay. So I have my desktop and I have my screen set up on the desk here. Next, it's time to start looking for those cables. And so we have the keyboard. We have 2 power cables, a VGA cable, and if I remember correctly, yes, there is a mouse. And I'm also going to hook up an HDMI splitter. So the purpose of doing that is so I have my primary screen and I have a secondary screen. Because we're going to be doing video production in the office here, I want to be able to hook up a television so that I have a confidence monitor. So when I'm taping a video, I know what's being recorded at any given time. So I'm going to hook that up here. Now let's find one more power cable. There we go. And so bonus cable in here. So I have 2 more power cables and another VGA. Let's get this bag put away with the rest of them. Okay, now, because this desktop has a VGA and an HDMI input, or excuse me, output, I am going to use this little adapter that will hook up to an HDMI coming off a computer and bring it into an VGA so I can hook it up to my screen. So as you can see, hooking them up, they just go right together. And so this blue VGA end can go into my monitor. And when you're hooking up a computer, don't worry about being too messy with getting the wires. I usually like to wait until the end to coil things up. But in the meantime, I'm just going to hook them up as they go, make sure everything's working, and then come back through and coil things up so I don't have a million wires hanging everywhere. Okay, let's get our power to the PC hooked up here. Okay, we got our power cable. So next we want our 2 cables here. And it is a little warm in here today, so if I look sweaty on the video, I apologize. I have no control over the heat and cooling in the building. And of course, moving around, you always get work up a good sweat. So I apologize if I don't look freshly showered or clean in the video. I assure you I did shower this morning before I came here. It's just a little warm in here right now, which I'm sure come January I'm going to be very happy about. So I guess I shouldn't complain too much about it. All right, so I got my power cables here. So let's go ahead and start putting power into the monitors, at least get the cable in there. So while I'm back here, let's go ahead and hook up these VGA cables so I don't have to come back to them again later. Okay, so we got that hooked up. Let's bring that around the rear of the setup here. All right, the second one. Now, this monitor has a nice little clip on the back to keep my cables neat, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. Get that tightened up. There we go. And then let's do the same with our power cable here. Get that coiled in back there. Okay, so both of our monitors have their VGA and their power cables plugged into the rear. So now we're going to come back and we're going to make sure that we have these nice and neat. So let's use one of these Velcro strips to get those put together. Okay. All right, so there's my power cables. So let's look at, oh, that's basically perfect where I don't have much slack in the video cables coming back to the computer. So that's going to save me a little bit of a headache here. So let's put the computer, and you know what, let's go ahead and tie the computer power wire up with these monitor cables. Okay, so now I have 3 power cables, and then I have my mouse and my keyboard, so we're going to go ahead and get those hooked up to the computer here. And so because the computer's set off towards the edge of the desk and the monitors are more towards the middle, I'm going to pull these around the rear of the computer. And so we have the separate power cable that we'll put aside in case we need it later. So now we have the basics of the computer set up, both monitors to the box, and then I have the keyboard and mouse, and I have my 3 power cables. So next I want to go ahead and get some of these strips so I can tie up these cables for the power so they're not all over the place. So I'm going to check in the bag here, and anytime you get things to make your setup neater or little supplies that you need for different content, don't just buy the smallest quantity you can get. In this case, I bought these in a 100 pack, and they are little Velcro strips. There we go. And so you'll see there's a hole on one end, and one side is the hard Velcro, the other side is the soft, and so you put these through, and then you have a nice cable tie that'll keep everything neat and clean. So we're going to do that right now for the power cables. Okay, and bring our cable through. Oh, oops, that didn't work. We'll try that again. There we go. Let's get those zipped up here. Okay, so we have that connected. So now let's go ahead and get power added to the computer and the monitors. Oh, and I completely forgot while I was hooking that second monitor to the HDMI output on the computer, I should have ran that first HDMI into this and then split it out to the monitor. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. So let's make sure our box stays nice and neat. All right, so the next thing that I'm looking for is a shorter HDMI cable, which I have right here. So now let's come in back behind this computer, and we're going to unplug that VGA adapter. There we go. So now we'll get the HDMI plugged in. So on the back of this switch, there's an HDMI input. Let's get that added. Let's also get our power connected to it. All right, and so I'm going to set that up here next to the screen so I know what I'm looking at. And then let's get that HDMI output 1 will give me my second monitor. Okay, there we go. Now, this is the important part where before I hook anything else up to the computer, I want to go ahead and make sure that I have it hooked up properly. So I'm going to turn on the computer, make sure everything powers up, and I'll be right back. All right, while we're waiting for the computer to start, which might take a couple of moments, since what I did is I took the hard drive out of the computer that I've previously been using and put it in. While it's the exact same make and model, it's still a different computer, so Windows is going to take a couple of moments to get that ready to go. In the meantime, I should have coffee ready, so I'm going to go ahead and get that going here. And so here we are, the first cup of coffee made in the new office. Tastes pretty good. All right, so the computer has loaded. I don't have a second screen, so I'm going to have to check on that in just a minute to figure out what's going on there. I suspect before I do anything else, let's make sure that my output is set. Okay, so I must have hit something because now I have a blue light on the computer. Let's take a look on the other screen to see what is going on. So we're going to go to display settings. So we'll come back to it. I suspect it's going to need to install a driver for that HDMI to VGA. So next what we're going to do here is we're going to set up the wireless access point. We're also going to connect a gigabit switch. So what this is going to do, since I'm using Spectrum for internet here in Indianapolis, you may have different choices of internet provider where you are, but they supply you with a modem that has one Ethernet out. And so this 8-port gigabit switch is going to allow me to connect my modem into the switch, and then that'll give me an additional 7 ports that I can plug Ethernet devices into. So this is going to be really convenient for things like later on down the road when I add a printer, or if I want to hook anything else up like a VoIP telephone system, I could just plug them into the switch. There won't be any additional configuration needed. So I'm going to need that device. That of course comes with a power supply that we'll have to string in back here. Let's go ahead and hook up our wireless access point. So what that means is once we're ready to go and we have the internet ready for people to connect to, this wireless access point will make Wi-Fi available here in the office. So let's go ahead and we're going to take this plastic off so it doesn't have anything to overheat on. This particular model did come with a PoE injector, which is power over Ethernet. In theory, you can set this on a ceiling on a wall and just run the Ethernet cable to it with the power included. But because I'm so close to a power source here, I'm just going to skip that entirely and use the power cable that came with it. Now, for this specific model, that power cable can hook up either to the back of the Wi-Fi access point itself or the PoE injector. Just like I did with the switch, I'm going to put the stuff I need for it back in the box and hold on to it in case that changes at a later date. So I'm going to go ahead and get this connected to power. So what I've done so far, I've gotten the computer, 2 screens, a switch, the wireless access point, and the modem connected to power at my desk. Of course, I've made coffee here in the office, so I'm able to enjoy that now. Since I have the basics set up for this computer, my next step is going to be to start to get audio and video. Since a lot of the content we do, like the stuff you're watching here, we record things for people to watch later on. For the office here, I'm planning to have 2 setups, although I'm only starting with 2 cameras. The first one is a 2-person talk show setup, so I'm going to use this corner of my office here for that. And then right here in the middle, I'll have an alternate set that I could put a green screen behind me and be able to chroma key things in. So stay tuned with future videos because I'm going to show you how to configure a chroma key so that you can put whatever backdrop in your video you'd like, just as we do here in the office. So let's get to our next step, which is going to be to start to get some of this audio put together. So there we are. There is the mixer. And actually, you know what? Upon reflection here, rather than set it on top, because I'm thinking about it here as I go, and the top of the desktop has some vents on it that I don't want to block because that'll cause overheating and much more serious problems that I really can't afford to remedy. So I'm just going to put it right in front here since we're going to primarily be doing videos in this office. It's not a problem to have everything right here on the desk. So for most of our videos, we've switched this year to using wireless lapel mics. So I'll hold it up here so you can see it. This is just a $150, $160 UHF frequency. So when you're talking about wireless microphones, there's two wireless protocols you're going to encounter. The cheapest one, of course, is VHF. That's a legacy technology. Here in the United States, VHF frequency has been reallotted to emergency and first responders. So manufacturers are still allowed to sell the equipment they already had manufactured, but it's important to note that if you buy it and it breaks, you cannot legally fix it. So VHF equipment, while cheaper, is not serviceable. UHF is a modern frequency that's used for wireless devices. You have way more options of channels. It's way less susceptible to interference in diverse environments, so such as a theater hall or any other kind of use case you might have. So it's a super basic UHF wireless lapel mic kit. We're going to use that here for this setup. So let's go ahead and get it unpacked. And I'll bring it closer to the camera so I can show you here. This wireless lapel mic system has 3 total outputs. So you have your XLR for each channel, channel A, channel B, or excuse me, channel A, channel B, so I had it backwards here. And then you also have a mix out. So that is both channels combined, depending on what you've set the knobs here on the front of the receivers. Now, I usually set the volume knob all the way up on these receivers and just do all of my tuning on the mixer on its way into the computer. One of the most common complaints about this device online was that the outputs are really low volume. So you kind of want that in a pro audio recording environment because the lower volume coming out means you're going to pick up less of the noise around you and the noise you don't want in the track. We can always make things louder in post-production, which makes it much easier to hear, but it's important to have a good canvas to work with, so not a lot of extra background noise when you go into post-production. So for all practical purposes, that works just fine for us. Of course, different devices have their own quirks about them. That's just the one that we happen to see with this. So let's go ahead and set that back, and we're going to set that power cable right with the mixer. Because I want to put these out on their own independent channel, I'm not going to use the combined cable that came with them, although I am going to pull the batteries out that go to the wireless lapel mic packs that we'll set up here in just a second. And so here we go. Here's channel 1A. So this is the box, and oh boy, it already has its batteries in it, so hopefully they're still okay. And then of course our lapel mic that goes with it. So I'm going to take that out of the plastic container, and we'll put those back in the box. And then we'll do the same for channel B, which does not have batteries in it still, so that's okay. We can put those back in. So let's get that other mic unpacked. Okay, so now we have everything out of here we need. Now, of course, we do still have headset mics that go with these lapel packs. My personal preference, I don't care for them because it looks like people are wearing a headset, and I think that detracts from the information that's being given in the video by that person talking, so we're not going to use them. So I have everything out of the box that I'm going to need for this system to work. So let's go ahead and put that box back together here. And there we go. We're going to set that under the desk. And so now our next step is going to be to get the XLR connected to the mixer, so that way we can go from the wireless lapel mics into the mixer, which will then feed into the computer. So I'm using the shorter ones here because I don't want a whole lot of extra cable all over the place because it gets hard to keep track of and it looks sloppy. So as you can see, let's set that other one down here. This is just a 3-foot long cable. So we're going to plug the male end into the mixer. Now the power to the mixer is still off, and that's important here because you want to get everything set up and then turn the power on so you don't have any like explosive pops that could hurt the speakers you have plugged into things or the electronics that you're trying to record into. So we're just getting all of this hooked up now, and then we'll power it up at the end. So let's see, that's balanced A. Okay, so let's get this other cable ready to go. Okay, here we are. So let's get that plugged into the mixer. There we go, and then we got channel B. Okay, so we have both of our channels for the lapel mics already set up and ready to go. We have our packs over here. We have the cords ready for power. Let's go ahead and take another Velcro strip here and tie those power cables up so they're not just extra cords all over the desk. There we go. All right, so we'll come back and we'll see. Okay, so here is the power for the lapel system. Okay, and there we go. And then let's go ahead and do the same for the power to the mixer. So I need to grab another one of those Velcro strips. Okay, there we go. So let's get this. There we go. We still want to have a little bit of play, so that way if we have to use another surge protector here on the desk, we can, or just anything else we need to utilize. Okay, there we go. All right, so those power cables are ready to be connected. So looking at the computer, I still don't have internet access, so I think for now we're just really going to have to wait and come back to that later. Let's start getting some other stuff out of the way here. I do, of course, have some USB-powered lights that we'll set up and some other miscellaneous electronics that we'll come back to at a later time. So let's go ahead and put those under the desk there. And the rest of this box is some additional lighting, so we're going to set that under the desk. So I think our next thing to do is going to be to let's go ahead and get some power to the audio. So I think for part one, we're good here. We'll be back here in a few moments to start the next part, which is going to be showing how to get OBS configured on a computer as its own brand new setup from zero. So make sure you stay tuned. You don't want to miss it. Okay, so this is the second part of setting up the new INSPIREsmall.biz office. So in the first video, we kind of connected everything. The computer here at my desk that I'm using. Since the last video, I did find out what was preventing the internet from activating. It turns out using Google Chrome with the AdBlock Plus prevents the Spectrum website from showing the information I need. So once I turned that off, I was able to get it activated, and I've since gotten my internet. Also, the other thing from the first video, I couldn't get my second screen to work using the HDMI out to my HDMI splitter and then an HDMI to VGA converter. And somehow I have not been able to get that other monitor on, so I hijacked a TV from home that has an HDMI input because the monitor doesn't. So sorry, Carly, the TV from the kitchen is here for now. So what that's going to do is give me a two-screen setup. So I'll be able to look at two different things on the computer at the same time, which is going to come in handy for the video production that we're going to do. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is confirm that my theory was correct, and I'm going to set the TV up and make sure that works with the computer. As long as we know that works, I'm going to proceed with setting up the cameras and everything else to go into the program here. So you'll see there's a couple of chairs sitting behind me. I'm going to move them more towards the wall so I can get a two-person interview set up, because tomorrow I start using the space to actually produce content. So it has to be done today. So first things first here, let's go ahead and turn the camera, and I'm going to show you the screen. So this is the television I'm going to replace this screen with, find another HDMI cable, and hope that solves my problem. So let's get to it. Here. Oh, and it's still on over the air. So let's go ahead and put it over to HDMI. Okay, connecting. Hey, all right, so now we have two screens, although it's considerably dimmer than the other display. So that's easy enough to fix. Not too bad of a problem here. So we know that there's two screens set up on this computer now, which is good. That's got exactly what I need for the next step. The USB hub that I'm going to use so I can set up all of my camera since I don't have enough USBs in the computer. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to stop recording temporarily. We know that my HDMI works out of the computer, so that's not a problem. So what I need to do now is get my HDMI input to this laptop set up so you can see the second screen and watch OBS Studio come together as I get the rest of the equipment hooked up. Hey everyone, it's Ryan Henry here, and this is the third part of putting the INSPIREsmall.biz office together. So in the last video, we determined that the kitchen TV from my house that I brought was adequate for a second monitor. I've now gotten the HDMI input, so from my splitter, I have it going to that second screen and then into the computer here so you can watch me set up OBS Studio. Before we get to that though, what we need to do is figure out how we're going to set this up back here. And so I'm going to shift the camera a little bit to show you the corner. There we are. Okay, so you can see the corner of the office here, and my goal is to have a two-person studio set up. So that's going to allow me to record new episodes of interviews where I can alternate a camera back and forth from one participant in the video to the other so you don't see both in one shot. So I'm going to move my screen out of the way here and get that put away. The next thing that I need to make sure to do is set up a camera stand and figure out how I want to position these chairs for the video. The reason why I'm doing this first, I need to have all of my devices coming into the computer before I launch OBS Studio, and that's just going to make my life much easier down the road. So we're going to put a chair here and probably the other chair about here. And so what that's going to allow me to do is put the camera to where I can get a shot of the person in it without seeing all of the equipment that's around. So for right now, because I only have two cameras here at the office with me, I'm going to set up the first camera and we'll walk through OBS Studio about how to get them set up. Then we'll pause and then I'll show you how to set up the second camera and then the hotkeys so we can quickly flip from one thing to the other. So we're going to grab the other camera right now. And so let's make sure that I have the piece to convert this stand. And so what I want to do first, and here I'll bring this back into frame so you can see it. Okay, there we go, and I'm tangled up in my mic cable now. So I'm screwing an adapter onto the top of this. So essentially what I'm using here is a microphone stand with a hardware piece that converts from the tip I have to the 1/4 inch, which is the standard tripod attachment. So I'm getting the camera put on here, and here, as soon as I have this tightened, I'm going to come back through with Velcro strips so I don't have this cord just sitting out. And I don't think it looks good at the end. So let's make sure we got that tight, but not too tight that it strips the hardware. And so we're going to let the camera cord just naturally hang down. Let's go back and get some Velcro strips. So as you saw in part one, I advocate for buying things like these in bulk that you know you're going to go through a lot when you're setting things up and tearing them down. So we're just going to lightly pull the cable back towards the stand. And the reason why this is important is if in the event this ends up in the shot, we don't want the cord to look sloppy, and it would just ruin the quality of what we're doing here. So let's get another one a little closer, because that'll tie that in and just a little further. And I'm not putting them on so tight that I can't adjust the cord with it. So as you can see there, that way I only need 2 for that section. And then I'm going to come down to the bottom and make sure, so that way I don't accidentally damage the end of the connector by just letting it hang loose. So we're getting that attached down here. There we go. And so we have that taken care of. Now it's time to get the cable so that I can get this back to the computer. And so this is just a standard 20-foot USB extension cable. And so I made the mistake of getting the cloth line because I thought it looked cool. And now that I've had to wrap it up and unwrap it several times, I think the cloth is just a looks cool thing, but it does not actually help with functionality. So let's get this connected down here at the bottom. And now we're going to bring that cord back to the computer. Okay, so we've got that added. Let's go ahead and make sure before we get into setting up OBS Studio, I'm going to get the wireless lapel mic that I have here at my desk set up. And that's right, this one already has batteries in it. And so I'm going to turn the mixer on for the first time here in the new setup. So let me turn the camera here so you can get a good look at that. And so let's go ahead and bring that down a little. There we are. So there's the mixer set up. It is connected via USB cable to the computer. It looks a little messy now, but like I said earlier, I'm going to come back once this is all set up and make things look neater. I usually try and just do things as neat as I can getting them set up, but this happens to be the way that it's going to work for now. So let's go ahead and get the camera put back. Okay, and so we're gonna flip over here to the desktop. There we go. So now you'll see that the desktop PC monitor is working. Oh, and I'm rolling over my cable here. So I'm connected to this computer setup with a wired microphone. My goal was to start with the simplest setup I could and then add to it as we put things together here. So that's why we're seeing that right now. And so on my computer, I'm opening up OBS Studio, and for the purpose of this, I'm going to create a brand new profile. So give me just a moment here. And so I'm going to flip this over, and let's create a brand new profile. And we're going to call this Office Setup for INSPIREsmall.biz. Oh, oops. There we go. And so it's going to take me through the auto configuration menu. So this is just like if I was setting up OBS Studio on a brand new computer for the first time. So ideally, we want this to be able to do live streaming, but it's not the primary purpose here. So we're going to optimize it for recording and say I will not be streaming. Now we can always come back and work with it later and get it set up for that. My concern here is just being able to capture the best quality content that I can. So we're going to click next. Base canvas resolution. So this is the output that we're going to be producing videos in. Now the computer I'm using here at the office is not powerful enough to do full 1080. So for the purpose of making sure that everything looks its best, we're going to choose 720. The reason why we're doing the lower resolution is that this computer not being powerful enough, when we're trying to record in 1080, it results in hops and skips in pixels. So it's not a smooth picture like we're seeing here in this video. So let's go ahead and choose the 1080. We're going to say we want to use 30 frames per second because that's standard high definition. And so now we're going to apply these settings. And now let's go to our scene collection where we're going to create a new scene collection. So we're going to call this INSPIREsmall.biz Studio. Okay, so our profile is going to be the settings of how OBS is configured, and now the scene collection is going to show what we're sending out on the video at any given time. So you'll notice by default it gives us a blank scene. So we're going to go ahead and rename this, and we're going to call it camera 1, because that is what we have connected to the computer right now is one camera. So let's go ahead and, oh, it didn't save my settings here, so I must not have hit enter. Cam 1, enter, there we go. All right, so now that we've renamed our scene, it's time to go in and add a source. So we're gonna hit plus, and we're gonna say video capture device. And this is where we're gonna call it camera 1, and I'm gonna go and add Logi there because it's a Logitech camera, easy to keep track of. So let's click OK, and now it's gonna give me an option for the C920, which is the camera that I'm looking for. However, it doesn't show me a picture. So I'm going to try and deactivate it and reactivate. So since I'm not able to see anything through it here, what I want to make sure I do is turn around and look. Okay, so the camera is on. So we know there is power to it. So I wonder what is going on here. I wonder if, let's cancel and let's try that again. And so let me go ahead and turn that back on at the switch and reactivate. There we go. Okay, so you'll see that I have a camera on, but it goes with a device default. So, whoa, what is going on here? This is not working quite the way I had hoped. So the camera seems to have frozen on me. So let's see what's going on here. Now let's try activating the camera. Okay, so, but I have a really choppy picture. I'm very concerned about that. So what I'm going to do here, because I'm not having very good luck with that, I'm going to try plugging it in directly to the computer and see what we get here. So let's try deactivating and then activating the camera again. And okay, so that is considerably smoother. So we learned something new today, and that is this USB bridge or this USB hub that I've brought in here is not going to work for this purpose. So you'll see on the lower left side of your screen, you have the front of my face. So here I am, and then from this camera here on screen, you got kind of the back of my head. We'll fix that in just a moment. But since we know that we've been able to solve how the camera is reacting with the computer here, we want to change the resolution type. Now, this is a camera that is capable of 1080. So now I'm going to click custom, and I'm going to go ahead and bring this camera in at 1080. Even though I am only working with 720 resolution, using the full camera's ability at 1080 is going to give me a much sharper picture. Now, as you'll see, I can just go to the points on any end of this and drag it in. So as you can see now, if I move it up now, I have the video at the perfect size of the frame. Now, I can do other things to this, and I'll just show you very quickly because I'm going to set up lights here as part of this setup as well. So I can come in here and say configure video, and I can look at things like adjusting the brightness. So if I were to check or change that setting, I can make the video way brighter, but that's not going to help me here. So I'm going to bring that back to its default. Focus and exposure. So I can go ahead and set that to auto, so the computer's going to automatically focus it to the best. And I can also zoom the camera in, but not very well. It is important to state here that because these are webcams that I'm using, they're not exactly intended first for high quality video production. Some of the fancier cameras that are out there on the market that you could buy are going to do a lot better job than just a webcam if you're trying to do a lot of zooming, zoom in on the picture. So I know this camera here is a little high, so I'm going to bring it down a bit. There we go. And so since I know that I have the resolution set properly on the video, I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now, the other thing that I want to make sure that I do here, I need my audio input. So it's only going to record or stream what you have available under sources for that scene. So right now I just have the camera. I don't have any audio here. Now I could enable, this camera does have onboard audio, but it's not going to do as good of a job as using the lapel mics is going to. So what I'm going to do here under sources, I'm going to click plus, and now I want to say audio input capture. And I'm going to rename this USB mixer. And there we go. So now I can choose what device it is. And I know with this computer, it's the USB audio codec. So I'm going to click OK. Now, this is where you're not going to see anything available right now because, of course, I don't have anything connected to it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to clip a lapel mic on. Now, I have one already for what's recording on the computer. This one I'm going to hook up to the wireless box. So I have that one on. I have the receiver on. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a little bit of juice. Okay, now you'll see on the screen that I have some of the level. So this is where what I might want to do is start adjusting those values. Anything good quality production, you don't want to spike it anywhere past the -6, otherwise it's going to distort in the speaker. But you do want it to be at least in the 40s to the -20, the -40 to the -20 at the basement of where you're talking. So since I use the settings that I always have on this mixer for my content, and I'll switch this computer around to show, or this camera around to show you, you'll see that I'm only using channel 1, and I have that bar value set at 0, as well as the output of the mixer is set at 0. So I'm not doing a whole lot with it, with the exception of some of the low-end EQ cut here, and that's just to make sure that my volume sounds fairly professional coming out of it. So what I can do here in the meantime, I can click the 3 dots under that value, and I can go to filters. Now, from this screen, what I'm looking to do explicitly, and I want to make it a little smaller so that I can see the values as I go. So there we are. So when I talk, I'm right around that -40 at the high end. I might want to go a little higher than that. So under audio filters, I'm going to hit plus, and I'm going to hit gain. And so now it says a value of 0, but let's go ahead and give that 5 because we only want to do it in small increments. And see, now I'm reliably past that -40, but still under the -20 as far as the black bar. I'm not seeming to spike the audio anywhere, so I'm fairly happy with where that is right now. Now, since we're trying to save time in post-production with OBS by getting as much into the video as possible when I'm first trying to use it, I'm going to add the logo bug in here so you'll see the INSPIREsmall.biz logo in the corner. And to do that, under the source for the same scene, I'm going to hit plus, and this time I'm going to choose image, and we're going to call this logo bug. And let's hit OK. And so now I'm going to browse the computer that in the correct folder. All right, so now, there we go. All right, and so you'll see that the logo bug image was way too large, and that's because I have it designed in 1080 and we're working with 720 here. So now you'll see that I have the INSPIREsmall.biz logo bug at the corner of the screen. But this is where I want to have a second a second camera set up so that I can communicate, or I can get the 2-person angle set up in here. So what I can do, I'm going to duplicate this scene, and I'm going to change it over to say cam 2. And the only thing that I'm going to have to do here is I'm going to have to replace what camera this is. So I want to go ahead and remove camera 1 from this scene. And so now you'll see that there's nothing there, but I do still have the USB mixer that's available here, so that's not a problem. But what I'm going to do here is disconnect the camera from the computer that I'm looking at, or that's right here in front of me, and I'm going to switch it over to the other computer. All right, so now that I have the second camera connected to the desktop and it's no longer on the laptop that I'm recording this video on, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit the plus video capture device, and I'm going to follow the same format so I know what I'm looking at here when I come back to do to work on this stuff later on. So the first one we added was camera 1 Logi. This one I'm going to call camera 2 Logi since it's the exact same model, and I'm going to hit OK. And so now you'll see, since I already have that first camera configured here, the second camera just automatically pops up. But I want to go ahead and change these settings. So I'm going to go to custom, and just like I did with the other camera, I want to capture the 1080 video, and I want to go ahead, and I don't believe I matched the match output frames per second. That was just something for the general settings. So let's go ahead and hit OK. But now I have a much larger video than I do in available frames. So to fix that, I'm going to just click on the corner here, and I'm going to scoot that back in. And so now you'll see that my camera is in front of my logo bug, and to fix that, under the sources screen here, I'm just going to pull this and place it over the camera. So now I have my INSPIREsmall.biz logo in the corner. But now I have both cameras set up, so I can go to camera 1, and that captures what's on this camera here to my right, and back to camera 2, which has what's to my left. This is the camera that I was previously recording on to get the video up to this point. Now, to make it easy for myself down the road, as I try and flip from one camera to the other, I want to set up some hotkeys. Hotkeys are going to allow me to use a single key on the keyboard and come back and flip from one camera to the other. So I'm going to File, Settings, clicking on the hotkeys. All right, now I'm going to scroll down into this list to where I have Cam 1 and Cam 2. So you'll see the first option here is Switch to Scene. So since this is camera 1, I'm going to say number 1 on my keyboard. And then, of course, for camera 2, I'm going to set that to number 2. And I, of course, have to make this a little shorter so I can get back here to OK. So now when I hit 1 on the keyboard, it's going to go to camera 1. When I hit camera 2 on the keyboard, it's going to go to camera 2. So I'm in good shape there. I have my cameras set up exactly the way I want, and I have the USB mixer on both of them, so I'm good to go. I also want to make sure that I come over here to camera 2 and mute that as well, since that's something that I had already done on camera 1, but you'll see the USB mixer is still active on both channels. So this audio mixer menu is going to show you what the levels are, but of course, unless you have it in the sources box, it's not actually recording it in that channel. So here's some other things that you can do with with OBS Studio that we'll cover in future videos. Let's go in here to the filters menu for camera. So I'm going to right click on that, and I can go up here to filters. So just like I did with audio, I was able to add some gain to the channel, but I can also do effects filters. So if I hit plus here, I could do chroma key, which is just like having it's a green screen background. We're going to set that up in future videos because one of the shots that I'm hoping to set up here in the office is the ability to have a nice healthy chroma key behind me. So what we're going to do next, I'm going to flip over and start positioning these cameras so I can try and get my chairs. So since my goal is to be able to start using this office tomorrow to be able to record some content, I need to make sure that I have my shots correct so I'm not coming in tomorrow in a hurry trying to get it done. Camera 1, if I hit the down, I'm on scene 2. So let's go ahead and try to flip from shot to shot. So hello, I am trying to sit. Ooh, I don't have that set up properly. That's quite the uncomfortable chair. So testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3. So I know camera 1 looks okay. I got lights on me. So then let's flip over to camera 2. And so now I'm going to try sitting in front of that. Testing 1, 2, 3. So I think my problem here is that I have the camera much closer in this shot than I do in scene 1. So as you can see, if I flip over, I think that needs to come a little closer. But otherwise, let's go ahead and enable recording and just see if, for the hell of it, that the video looks okay. Okay, so long story short, I do have it flipping from camera 1, camera 2. I'm going to have to do a little bit of playing around with the angle to make sure I got it right. However, the good news is I have everything working properly. So at the very absolute bare minimum, I have OBS configured properly on my computer here at the office to be able to record new content. So hopefully this tutorial helped you a little bit. I, of course, want to make sure that we're putting out good quality content that's going to help everyone. So my hope is that you enjoyed this video and that you can find some useful content in here that's going to help you continue to produce good quality content for your business and help you take your business to the next step. So I'm Ryan Henry, idea guy for INSPIREsmall.biz. Thanks for watching.